Admiral Zextai watched his command screen with growing dread. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge of his ship. The peaceful dawn. The sounds of battle echoed through the metal walls as enemy weapons hit his fleet again and again. "Sir, we've lost the Harvest Moon," reported his communications officer, her voice shaking. "The garden world is badly damaged. They're asking to retreat." Zextai's forearms gripped his command chair tighter. Around him, his crew worked desperately to keep their ship running. The Peaceful Dawn had been a cargo transport just 6 months ago. Now it carried the heaviest weapons the Kethvar coalition could build. It wasn't enough. Through the main screen, he could see the enemy ships. The Vorthak Empire vessels were dark and covered in spikes. They moved like hunters, surrounding his small fleet. Each Vorthak ship was twice the size of his largest vessel. Their weapons turned his people's ships into burning metal clouds. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked. 12, sir. We started with 37. Zextai felt sick. The Kethvar had never been fighters. His people grew food on 3 peaceful worlds. They traded crops and helped other species. When the Vorthak Empire came demanding surrender, the coalition had tried to talk. The Empire's answer was an attack on their outer settlements. "Sir, incoming message from the Vorthak fleet," said the communications officer. "Put it on screen." The face that appeared was nightmare fuel. Warlord Krextha had red eyes and sharp teeth. Scars covered his gray skin like a map of old battles. When he spoke, his voice sounded like metal grinding. "Little farmers," Krextha said with a cruel smile. "You fight well for plant growers. But this ends now. Surrender your worlds, and I will let some of your people live as slaves. Refuse, and I will turn your planets into dust." Zextai's crew looked at him with desperate eyes. They all knew the truth. The coalition had no chance. Their converted cargo ships couldn't fight the Empire's war fleet, but surrender meant the end of everything they loved. "We need more time to consider your offer," Zextai said. Krextha laughed. "1 hour, little admiral. Then we finish this." The screen went dark. Zextai looked around his bridge. Young crew members from all 3 coalition worlds served together here. They had families waiting at home. Children who would never grow up if this went wrong. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his weapons officer. Zextai thought hard. The coalition had sent messages to nearby systems asking for help. Most species would not risk fighting the Vorthak Empire. The Empire was too strong and too cruel, but maybe someone would answer. Maybe someone would at least take refugees. "Send a general distress call on all frequencies," he said. "Tell them we are the Kethvar coalition. Tell them we are a peaceful alliance under attack by the Vorthak Empire. Ask for any help they can give." "What about the surrender demand, sir? We keep fighting until help comes or until we can't fight anymore." His communications officer worked quickly. "Message sent on all bands, sir." "Full spectrum broadcast." Zextai nodded. He had heard stories about many species in this part of the galaxy. The Thorian Republic was strong but far away. The Crystal Federation helped refugees but had no military. There were rumors of a new species called humans who had joined the Galactic Commerce Network recently. They seemed eager to make friends and help others. Maybe they would send a patrol ship or offer to take civilians. "Sir, the Vorthak ships are moving," reported his sensor officer. "They're forming an attack pattern. All ships, prepare for final battle." Zextai broadcast to his fleet. "Fight for your homes. Fight for your families. Make them pay for every meter. All ships for your homes. 6,500. Make them pay for every meter." The Vorthak ships came forward like hungry monsters. Their weapons lit up space with deadly energy. The coalition ships spread out and returned fire. The peaceful dawn shook as enemy blasts hit their shields. "Shield strength at 60%, called his engineer. "Return fire. Target their lead ship." The coalition weapons were weaker, but they were accurate. Their shots hit the enemy ships but barely damaged them. It was like throwing stones at armored giants. Another coalition ship exploded. Then another. Zextai watched his people die and felt helpless. Where was the help? Had anyone heard their call? Sir, incoming transmission on emergency frequency, said the communications officer suddenly. From who? Unknown ship signature. They identify themselves as humans. Zextai's heart jumped. Someone had heard them. Put them through. A new voice came over the speakers. It sounded calm and professional. The accent was strange, but the words were clear. HFY Coalition Forces. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call. Help is coming. Hold your position. Admiral Chen, this is Admiral Zextai. How many ships are you sending? We need immediate assistance. There was a pause. Admiral Zextai, what is your current tactical situation? We have 12 ships left from 37. The enemy has at least 50 vessels. They are much more powerful than us. We cannot hold out much longer. Another pause. Understood. Admiral Zextai, can you maintain your current position for 2 hours? 2 hours? That seemed impossible. But, if help was coming, we will try. Admiral Chen, how many ships should we expect? Sufficient numbers, Admiral. We're bringing everything we need to handle this situation permanently. The transmission ended. Zextai looked at his crew with new hope. Someone was coming to help. He didn't know much about humans, but they sounded confident. Maybe they had a small but powerful fleet. Maybe they could even the odds. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet. Help is coming. We need to hold out for 2 more hours. Fight smart. Protect each other. We're going home. The coalition ships regrouped and continued fighting. They lost 3 more vessels, but they held their formation. The Vorthok seemed puzzled by their renewed resistance. Krextha sent angry messages demanding surrender. But Zextai ignored them. As the second hour approached, Zextai began to worry. Space around them was empty except for the battle. Where were the human ships? Had they changed their minds? Had something gone wrong? Then his sensor officer screamed, "Sir, something's happening to space itself." 2 hours earlier, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Terra Station. The massive space station orbited Earth like a metal moon. Inside, officers from a dozen human worlds worked together to keep space safe for humanity and its allies. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress call on emergency frequencies," said Lieutenant Martinez at the communications console. "It's from an unknown species requesting immediate military assistance." Chen walked over to the console. As the head of Human Defense Fleet Operations, she received many requests for help. Most were simple problems that could be solved with a single patrol ship. "Put it through." The message played across the speakers. Admiral Zextai's voice was filled with desperation as he described the attack on his people. Chen listened carefully. She had heard of the HFY Coalition. They were peaceful traders who sold food to many species. Good people who had never hurt anyone. She had also heard of the Vorthak Empire. Intelligence reports painted them as brutal killers who destroyed entire civilizations. They took slaves, stripped planets bare, and left death wherever they went. The kind of threat that humanity had sworn to stop. "Get me the Defense Council," Chen ordered. "Emergency session. Send them all the data we have on the Vorthak Empire and the HFY Coalition." Within minutes, holographic images of 5 other admirals appeared around the command table. These were the people who made decisions about humanity's military actions across the galaxy. "The situation is clear," said Admiral Rodriguez from the Mars Fleet Command. "A peaceful species is under attack by a hostile empire. Standard protocol applies." Admiral Park from the outer colonies nodded. "The Vorthak Empire represents a clear threat to galactic stability. They've been expanding for 50 years. Someone needs to stop them." Chen pulled up a star map showing Vorthak space. Red markers showed their conquered worlds. There were hundreds of them. Each marker represented millions of dead or enslaved beings. "This isn't just about helping the HFY," she said. "The Vorthak Empire is everything we stand against. They're exactly the kind of threat we built our fleets to handle." Admiral Thompson from Earth Fleet leaned forward. What kind of response are you thinking, Sarah? Complete elimination of the threat, Chen replied. We don't just save the coalition and leave. We end the Vorthak Empire permanently. The other admirals looked at the data. They saw the slave worlds, the destroyed civilizations, the growing threat to peaceful species everywhere. The decision was obvious. Motion to authorize Operation Celestial Cleansing, said Admiral Park. Full strategic response against the Vorthak Empire. Seconded, said Rodriguez. All in favor? Asked Chen. 5 hands raised. The decision was unanimous. Authorization granted, Chen announced. I'll take the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet and handle this personally. As the other admirals signed off, Chen turned to her staff. Alert all fleet commanders. I want 12 dreadnought carriers, 48 heavy cruisers, and full support vessels, medical ships, supply ships, marine transports, everything. Admiral, that's enough firepower to conquer a small galaxy, said Captain Williams, her chief of staff. Are you sure we need that much? Chen looked at the map of Vorthak space again. Captain, we're not just stopping an attack. We're dismantling an entire empire. We need to be ready for anything they can throw at us. Orders went out across human space. On Luna Base, the massive dreadnought Terra's Wrath prepared for launch. Its hangars held 500 fighter craft and 10,000 Marines. On Titan Station, cruiser squadrons loaded their missile bays with enough firepower to crack planets. Across 50 human worlds, the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet assembled. While the ships gathered, human intelligence services went to work. Spy satellites jumped into Vorthak space and began mapping every military installation, every shipyard, every command center. Deep space reconnaissance probes identified supply lines and weak points. Major Collins from intelligence brought Chen the results 6 hours later. We have complete tactical intelligence on the Vorthak Empire, Admiral. Their main fleet is scattered across 12 systems. Their shipyards are concentrated around their home world. Their command structure is centralized and vulnerable. Chen studied the reports. The Vorthak Empire looked powerful, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. Their technology was brutal, but simple. Their tactics relied on overwhelming force against weaker opponents. They had never fought anyone who could match their strength. How long to neutralize their entire military capability? She asked. If we hit them simultaneously across all systems, 6 weeks maximum. They won't have time to regroup or coordinate a defense. And the slave worlds? We can liberate them as we advance. Most of the enslaved populations will probably help us once they understand we're there to free them. Chen nodded. This was exactly what humanity had built its fleets for. Not conquest, but liberation. Not empire, but justice. Fleet status report, she called out. All ships ready for departure, Admiral, replied Captain Williams. 374 vessels total. Full combat loading. Chen looked at the tactical display. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet was larger than most species' entire military forces. Its flagship, the dreadnought Moral Authority, carried enough weapons to sterilize continents. But humanity didn't build these ships to destroy worlds. They built them to save them. Signal all ships, she announced. We jump in 1 hour. Destination: Kethvar Space. Mission: eliminate the Vorthak Empire and liberate all enslaved populations. As the countdown began, Chen opened a communication channel to the distant Coalition fleet. Kethvar Coalition Forces, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call. Help is coming. Hold your position. The alien admiral sounded desperate when he replied. His people were dying while they talked. Chen felt the familiar anger that came when she heard about bullies hurting innocent people. Admiral Zextai, what is your current tactical situation? The numbers were bad. 37 ships reduced to 12. 50 enemy vessels with superior firepower. A classic mismatch that the Vorthak Empire loved. Understood. Admiral Zextai, can you maintain your current position for 2 hours? 2 hours to get there. 2 hours to prepare the most overwhelming military response in human history. 2 hours before the Vorthak Empire began to learn what happened when they threatened humanity's friends. We're bringing everything we need to handle this situation permanently. Chen closed the channel and turned to her crew. All stations, prepare for fleet jump. Navigation. Plot our course. Communications. Prepare full battle coordination protocols. Intelligence. I want real-time updates on all Vorthak positions. The massive fleet began to move. Hundreds of human warships, each one more powerful than anything the galaxy had seen before, jumped toward a distant star system where peaceful farmers were making their last stand. Admiral Chen smiled grimly. The Vorthak Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked innocent people and called it conquest. Now they were about to discover what human beings called justice. Fleet jump in 10 seconds, announced navigation. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. Space twisted around the third expeditionary fleet as it vanished into hyperspace, carrying the combined might of human civilization toward its next great victory for galactic peace. Space above the Kethvar fleet began to twist and tear like fabric being ripped apart. Admiral Zextai stared at his sensors as impossible readings flooded his screens. Energy levels that broke his instruments, mass signatures larger than space stations. Something enormous was coming through hyperspace. "Sir, I'm reading massive spatial distortions," his sensor officer reported, her voice filled with shock. "Multiple contacts incoming. Very large contacts." The first human ship emerged like a metal mountain breaking through reality. The dreadnought Moral Authority was 3 kilometers long and covered in weapon systems. Its hull gleamed with advanced armor that seemed to bend light around it. But it was just the beginning. More ships followed. Cruisers the size of cities. Carriers that could hold entire fleets inside their hangars. Support vessels larger than anything in the Coalition fleet. They kept coming and coming until space around the battle was filled with human warships. Zextai's bridge fell silent. His crew stared at their screens in total amazement. The human fleet wasn't just big. It was impossible. There were hundreds of ships, each one more powerful than his entire Coalition fleet combined. "Count them," he whispered to his sensor officer. "Sir, I count 374 vessels. Mass readings suggest their smallest ships are twice our size, their largest." She paused, checking her instruments. "Sir, their flagship is reading as a mobile battle station. It's larger than our orbital defense platforms. The human fleet didn't just arrive randomly. It emerged in perfect formation, surrounding the entire battle zone in seconds. Every ship knew exactly where to go. Every weapon was already pointed at the Vorthak vessels. It was like watching a deadly dance performed by giants." Warlord Krextha's voice crackled over the communications system. For the first time, the Vorthak commander sounded uncertain. "What is this? Who dares interfere with the Empire's conquest?" Admiral Chen's voice answered from the human flagship. It was calm and professional, like she was discussing the weather. "Vorthak vessels, this is Admiral Sarah Chen, of the Human Defense Fleet. You are hereby ordered to cease all hostile actions and surrender immediately." Krextha recovered his arrogance quickly. "Human? I have never heard of your pathetic species. You have made a grave mistake coming here. The Vorthak Empire will crush you and use your bones to decorate our ships. Warlord Krextha, I assume. Your empire's reputation precedes you. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. After that, we will consider you a legitimate military target." And Zextai watched the exchange with growing amazement. The humans were giving ultimatums to the most feared empire in this part of the galaxy. They spoke like they held all the advantages. Looking at his sensor readings, he was starting to think they might be right. "Surrender?" Krextha laughed. "You bring a few ships and think you can threaten the Empire? We have conquered 100 worlds. We have destroyed fleets 10 times your size. Actually, Warlord, this is just one of our expeditionary fleets, and your empire has never faced anyone who could fight back properly. That's about to change." Admiral Chen opened a new channel to the Coalition ships. "Admiral Zextai, this is Admiral Chen. Please move your vessels to a safe distance. We're about to demonstrate why attacking peaceful species is a very bad idea." Zextai looked around his bridge. His crew was still staring at the human fleet with open mouths. Admiral Chen, how many ships did you bring? Enough to solve this problem permanently, Admiral. Don't worry about the numbers. Worry about getting your people to safety. The coalition fleet began moving away from the battle zone. As they retreated, Zextai got a better view of the human formation. The ships moved with perfect coordination. They didn't look like a rescue force. They looked like the fist of an angry god. Krextha was still talking, his voice getting louder and more threatening. You think your metal toys impress me, human? I will show you what real power looks like. My ships will tear yours apart and feed the pieces to the void. I see, Admiral Chen replied calmly. In that case, let me provide a small demonstration. All ships, prepare for weapons test. One human vessel broke from the formation. It was smaller than the others, barely the size of a coalition patrol ship. Compared to the massive Vorthak battleships, it looked like a child's toy. Frigate determined resolution. You are cleared for target practice, Chen announced. The small human ship approached Krextha's flagship like it was taking a casual stroll. The Vorthak ship was a monster, covered in spikes and heavy armor. It had weapons that could destroy cities. Against the tiny human frigate, it should have been an easy victory. Destroy that insect, Krextha ordered his fleet. The Vorthak flagship opened fire with everything it had. Massive energy beams and explosive missiles filled space around the human frigate. But none of them hit their target. The small ship moved through the attack like it was dancing, avoiding every shot with impossible grace. Our turn, said the captain of the determined resolution. What happened next defied belief. The frigate fired a single weapon. Not a massive beam or a swarm of missiles. Just one small projectile that moved faster than Zextai's sensors could track. Krextha's flagship simply vanished. One moment it was there, a massive warship with thousands of crew members. The next moment, there was only empty space and a small cloud of glowing particles. Zextai's bridge was completely silent. His crew stared at their instruments like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The most powerful ship in the Vorthak fleet had been destroyed by what looked like a human scout vessel. Demonstration complete, Admiral Chen announced. All Vorthak vessels, you now have 59 minutes to surrender unconditionally. The remaining Vorthak ships hung in space like lost children. Their leader was dead. Their most powerful ship was gone. The humans had barely tried, and they had won the fight before it really started. One Vorthak captain tried to speak. His voice was shaking with fear. How? How did you destroy our flagship so easily? That was our smallest ship using training weapons, Chen replied. Would you like to see what our real warships can do? The Vorthak fleet began to scatter, trying to escape back to their own territory. But the human ships were already in position to stop them. Every escape route was blocked. Every Vorthak vessel was surrounded. Attempting to flee will be considered an act of war, Admiral Chen warned. Return to your positions and prepare for boarding procedures. Zextai opened a channel to the human flagship. Admiral Chen, your demonstration was impressive, but won't the Vorthak Empire send more ships when they learn what happened here? Chen's reply sent chills down his spine. Admiral Zextai, this fleet isn't just here to rescue your people. We're here to make sure the Vorthak Empire never threatens anyone again, ever. Looking at the massive human fleet surrounding them, Zextai began to understand. The coalition had asked for help with a local problem. But humanity had sent enough ships to end an empire. They hadn't come to win a battle. They had come to win a war, and from what he had just seen, they were going to succeed. The remaining Vorthak ships tried to run. Admiral Zextai watched his sensors as 49 enemy vessels broke formation and fled in all directions. It looked like chaos. But he was learning not to underestimate what looked obvious when humans were involved. Admiral Chen, he called over the communication system. The Vorthak fleet is escaping. Should we pursue them? Admiral Chen's reply was calm and almost amused. They're not escaping, Admiral Zextai. They're being herded. Zextai looked closer at his tactical display. The human ships weren't chasing the fleeing Vorthak vessels. They were just sitting in space, waiting. Then he saw it. Every escape route led to more human ships. The enemy wasn't running away. They were running into carefully placed traps. How did you know which way they would go? Zextai asked. We studied their tactics for 6 hours before we came here. The Vorthak Empire always uses the same escape patterns. They're bullies, not real soldiers. Bullies are predictable. One by one, Vorthak ships found themselves surrounded by human vessels. But instead of being destroyed like their flagship, something stranger happened. The human ships fired unusual weapons that seemed to shut down the enemy vessels without damaging them. What are those weapons? Zextai asked. Non-lethal capture systems, Chen explained. We need their ships intact for intelligence purposes, and we prefer to take prisoners rather than create martyrs. Zextai watched in amazement as human marines boarded the disabled Vorthak ships. The boarding actions were swift and efficient. Within minutes, each enemy vessel was secured and its crew captured. No one was killed unless they refused to surrender. Admiral Chen, your military efficiency is remarkable. But surely this victory will alert the Vorthak Empire to your capabilities. Won't they send larger fleets? 1. There was a pause before Chen answered. Admiral Zextai, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This engagement isn't the end of our operation. It's the beginning. Beginning of what? The complete dismantling of the Vorthak Empire. Zextai felt his heart skip a beat. You mean all of it? Every shipyard, every military base, every command center, every slave camp. The Vorthak Empire ends today. We're just starting with this fleet because they happen to be attacking our new friends. As if to prove her point, Admiral Chen activated a holographic display that appeared above both fleets. It showed a three-dimensional map of Vorthak space with hundreds of red markers indicating military installations. This is our target list, Chen announced. 47 shipyards, 233 military bases, 12 command centers, and 108 slave worlds, requiring liberation. Estimated time for complete pacification, 6 standard weeks. Zextai stared at the display. The scope was beyond anything he could imagine. The humans weren't planning a rescue mission, or even a counterattack. They were planning the complete destruction of an interstellar empire. Admiral Chen, the Vorthak Empire has thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, entire planets devoted to military production. How can you be sure you can defeat them all? Because we've done this before, Admiral. The Vorthak Empire isn't the first group of bullies we've had to stop. It probably won't be the last. The captured Vorthak ships were being towed by human vessels. Their crews were being processed by marine boarding parties. Everything moved with mechanical precision, like humanity had practiced this exact operation many times. Captain Williams appeared on Chen's communication channel. Admiral, intelligence teams have downloaded complete tactical data from the captured ships. We have locations, strengths, and defensive capabilities for all major Vorthak installations. Excellent. Begin Phase 2 operations. Phase 2, it turned out, was even more impressive than the capture operation. The human fleet split into multiple task forces, each one heading toward different parts of Vorthak space. But they didn't just disappear into hyperspace. They coordinated their movements so that they would arrive at dozens of targets simultaneously. You're attacking everything at once? Zextai asked. Simultaneous operations prevent them from warning each other or coordinating a defense, Chen explained. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late to organize resistance. Admiral Zextai was beginning to understand something important. Humanity didn't think like other species. When most civilizations fought wars, they tried to defeat enemy armies and capture territory. When humans fought wars, they tried to solve problems permanently. What will happen to the Vorthak people after you defeat their military? He asked. The civilian population will be offered membership in a new democratic federation. The military leadership will be tried for war crimes. The enslaved populations will be freed and given reparations. The former slave worlds will become independent members of the galactic community. You've already planned the entire post-war reconstruction? Of course. What's the point of ending a war if you don't have a plan for the peace that follows? Zextai looked around his bridge. His crew was listening to every word, with expressions of amazement and growing respect. They had thought they were asking for a rescue. Instead, they had triggered the most comprehensive military operation any of them had ever heard of. Admiral Chen, may I ask you a personal question? Certainly. How many species have you helped like this? There was a long pause. Admiral, in the 30 years since humanity joined the galactic community, we have encountered 17 different aggressive empires, 43 pirate organizations, and 8 slave trading networks. All of them have been permanently discontinued. Permanently discontinued. The phrase sent chills through Zextai's crew. Humanity spoke about ending empires, like other species talked about cleaning their homes. And you do all of this to help other species? We do it to maintain galactic peace and security. Aggressive empires are a threat to everyone, including humanity. The most efficient solution is to eliminate them completely, rather than let them grow stronger. Admiral Chen's task force began preparing to depart for Vorthak space. Other human fleets were already jumping toward their targets. In a few hours, the Vorthak Empire would be under attack across dozens of star systems simultaneously. Admiral Zextai, we're leaving a protection squadron here to guard your worlds while the operation continues. Captain Martinez will coordinate with your forces to ensure your system's security. Protection squadron, 12 heavy cruisers and support vessels. More than enough to handle any remaining Vorthak forces or other threats that might arise. Zextai looked at his tactical display. The human protection squadron was larger and more powerful than the entire coalition fleet had been before the war started. They were leaving more ships to guard his system than his people had ever owned. Admiral Chen, before you go, I have to ask. Why did you respond so completely to our request for help? Chen's answer was simple and devastating. Admiral, when good people ask for help against evil people, humanity doesn't send just enough assistance to maybe win. We send enough assistance to guarantee victory and prevent the problem from ever happening again. The main human fleet began jumping toward Vorthak space, leaving behind only the protection squadron and the captured enemy vessels. But Zextai knew the real battle was just beginning. Across the galaxy, the most powerful military force he had ever seen was about to teach the Vorthak Empire why threatening innocent people was the worst mistake they could make. In 6 weeks, there would be no more Vorthak Empire. There would only be free worlds, grateful refugees, and another entry in humanity's growing list of permanently solved problems. 6 weeks later, Admiral Zextai stood on the observation deck of the newly built Coalition Assembly Station. Through the massive windows, he could see ships from dozens of species coming and going. Former Vorthak slave worlds now sent their own representatives to the expanded coalition. Trade vessels carried goods between systems that had been cut off from each other for generations. The Vorthak Empire was gone. Not defeated, not conquered, gone, as if it had never existed. Admiral Chen's fleet had moved through Vorthak space like a force of nature. Every military installation had been captured or destroyed. Every shipyard had been dismantled. Every command center had been occupied. The operation had been so thorough and efficient that neighboring civilizations were still trying to understand what had happened. Sir, Admiral Chen's ship is requesting permission to dock, announced his communications officer. Permission granted. Full honors. Zextai walked to the docking bay to meet the human admiral. Over the past 6 weeks, he had received regular reports about the liberation campaign. The humans had kept their word about everything. 6 weeks exactly. Complete elimination of Vorthak military power. Freedom for all enslaved populations. Democratic governments established on former slave worlds. Admiral Chen stepped off her shuttle looking exactly as calm and professional as she had during the battle. Behind her walked a group of beings from many different species. Former slaves who were now free citizens of new democratic worlds. Admiral Zextai, Chen said with a slight smile. The operation is complete. All Vorthak military assets have been neutralized. All enslaved populations have been liberated. All former slave worlds have established their own governments. And the Vorthak people themselves? The civilian population has voted to join the new Democratic Federation of former Vorthak worlds. They seem quite happy to be rid of their imperial government. Turns out most of them never supported the Empire's aggressive policies. Zextai nodded. He had learned that humanity made careful distinctions between governments and people. They destroyed empires but saved populations. What about the imperial leadership? War crimes trials are proceeding according to galactic law. Most of the leadership has already been convicted and sentenced to rehabilitation programs. A few are still fighting the charges, but the evidence is overwhelming. They walked together through the station corridors. Everywhere they went, beings from liberated worlds stopped to thank Admiral Chen. She accepted their gratitude with quiet dignity, as if freeing entire civilizations was just part of her regular duties. Admiral Chen, I've been studying reports about human military actions across the galaxy, Zextai said. The pattern is remarkable. Wherever humanity establishes trade relationships, tyrannical governments seem to collapse. Wherever human explorers detect oppression, liberation fleets appear. Humanity believes in certain principles, Admiral. Freedom, democracy, self-determination. We don't force these values on others, but we also don't tolerate anyone preventing others from choosing them. They entered the main conference room where representatives from 37 worlds were waiting. These were the new members of the expanded coalition. All of them former Vorthak territories now free to govern themselves. Before we begin the formal ceremony, Chen announced to the assembly, I want to make something clear. Humanity did not liberate your worlds to control them. We did it because freedom is a basic right that no one should be denied. Your governments, your laws, your futures are yours to decide. A representative from one of the former slave worlds stood up. She was a tall, blue-skinned being whose people had been enslaved for over a century. Admiral Chen, our world owes humanity a debt we can never repay. How can we thank you for giving us back our lives? Chen's answer was simple and powerful. Stay free. Help others who need help. Build societies that protect the innocent and care for the weak. That's all the thanks we need. After the ceremony, Zextai and Chen talked privately in his office. The Kethvar Admiral had many questions about humanity's role in the galaxy. Admiral Chen, may I speak freely? Of course. My people originally sent a distress call asking for a few ships to help defend our worlds. Instead, you came with a fleet that could conquer galaxies. You eliminated an entire empire. You changed the balance of power in this whole region of space. Why? Why? Chen looked out the window at the peaceful traffic around the station. Ships from dozens of worlds, all free to trade and travel without fear of imperial attacks. Admiral, humanity learned something important in our early history. Small problems become big problems if you don't solve them properly. The Vorthak Empire wasn't really a small problem, but the principle still applies. Better to solve things completely than to leave them partially fixed. But the cost must have been enormous. The resources, the planning, the risk to your own people. The cost of allowing the empire to continue would have been much higher. How many more worlds would they have enslaved? How many more species would they have destroyed? Sometimes, the right thing to do is also the practical thing to do. Zextai was beginning to understand something about humanity that he found both comforting and terrifying. They didn't just react to threats. They eliminated them. They didn't just win battles. They solved problems, permanently. Admiral Chen, what happens now? Will humanity maintain a military presence in this region? We're establishing 3 patrol bases to monitor the area and provide rapid response capability. But the real security will come from the new coalition. 37 free worlds working together are much stronger than 37 isolated targets. Chen handed him a datapad with detailed information about humanity's long-term plans for the region. Trade agreements, defense treaties, educational exchanges, technological sharing. It was a complete framework for peaceful development. We're also offering to train coalition defense forces using human military techniques. Not because we want to create more warriors, but because free people should be able to defend their freedom. Zextai scrolled through the proposals. Everything was designed to make the region stronger and more stable. Nothing was designed to give humanity control or special advantages. Admiral, I have to ask. What does humanity gain from all this? What's your benefit from spending so much to help others? Chen smiled. Admiral, humanity gains the same thing everyone else gains. A galaxy where peaceful species can trade freely, explore safely, and develop without fear of aggressive empires. That's worth any cost. As Admiral Chen prepared to leave, Zex Tai realized something important. His people hadn't just called for backup. They had made contact with a civilization that saw protecting freedom as its primary responsibility. Humanity didn't help others because it was profitable or easy. They helped because they believed it was right. Admiral Chen, one final question. Are there other aggressive empires in the galaxy that humanity is monitoring? Chen paused at the door. There are always threats to peaceful civilizations, Admiral. Humanity keeps track of them all. When the time is right, we deal with them appropriately. After she left, Zex Tai stood alone in his office, looking out at the peaceful station and the free ships of the new coalition. In 6 weeks, humanity had changed everything, not through conquest or intimidation, but through overwhelming force applied with surgical precision against the right targets. He pulled up intelligence reports about other regions of the galaxy. There were rumors of other aggressive empires suddenly becoming more careful about their expansion plans. Reports of pirate organizations mysteriously disappearing, stories of slave trading networks being disbanded by unknown forces. The galaxy was slowly learning what the Kethvar coalition had discovered. When you called for human backup, you didn't just get help, you got permanently placed under the protection of a species that considered the existence of peaceful civilization to be a moral imperative worth any level of military commitment to preserve. Zex Tai smiled and returned to his work. There was much to do to help build the new coalition. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't worried about the future. Humanity was out there, watching and waiting, ready to help anyone who needed it, ready to solve any problem that threatened the peace, permanently.